UFC Fight Night Vegas 65, Lewis versus Spivak takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Natalia Silva versus Teresa Bleda. I'm going to be going with Natalia Silva here, just because I really was impressed by her last performance. Listen, Teresa Bleda showed some really good grappling on the Contender Series, but from what I saw from Natalia Silva in her last fight, she genuinely showed some promise as like a future contender up the top of the division, because Jasmine Jasudavicius, she knows what she's doing in this sport. You know what I mean? She knows how to get people to the ground. She has some decent wins in her career. She was fighting some decent level competition before she got to the UFC. She fought like Elise Reed. I know it was when Elise Reed was just getting started, but she's beat some decent female fighters, including Pilastri, and even beat Kay Hansen as well pretty convincingly. But Natalia Silva just schooled her over 3 rounds and showed such amazing stand-up. I know that Bleda has an ability to get things to the ground, but I am going to have to go with Natalia Silva, because I think when you see talent in a female fighter, which is rare, you kind of have to go towards it. She just seems to have like a natural gift for MMA fighting. And I know that she's lost a bunch of fights and her record doesn't look too good, but she's 25 years of age. She trains at a good gym. I just think she has a lot to improve on, and also her early losses in her career. Like her last loss was to Marina Rodriguez in 2017, who's currently a title contender in the women's strawweight division. So I'm not going to look too far into that. Plus, she lost a bunch of her early fights, and recently she's been on a long win streak. Since losing to Marina Rodriguez, she is now on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight win streak coming into this fight against some decent competition recently as well. So I'm going to trust in Natalia Silva over Bleda. But Bleda's good as well. So if she wins this one, she's someone to look out for. 20 years of age, good grappling ability, but just, you know, I'm leaning towards Natalia Silva based on what we saw in her last performance. Moving on. Up the card, Fernie Garcia versus Brady Hiestand. I'm going to be going with Brady Hiestand here. I believe in this guy, and I didn't believe in him when we were first watching The Ultimate Fighter, but as I was watching it, I was like, hang on, this guy's making it towards the end of The Ultimate Fighter here, and I didn't think he was gonna. And he lost a split decision to Ricky Turcios, where he sort of like had more control time and good grappling moments, but Ricky Turcios maybe like barely out-hustled him and out-damaged him in that fight as well. And I was just surprised by his grappling. You know what I mean? He came into the Contender Series, or the Ultimate Fighter, sorry. He came into the Ultimate Fighter as a guy where you were like, this guy's an absolute can crusher. They're babying this guy's career. He lost to the only good competition that they gave him in Chad Anheliga, who's now gone on to beat really good opponents, by the way, on the Contender Series. Some really good Dagestani guy, I believe, or someone along that line. I don't think he was a Dagestani guy, but it was one of those types of guys. You know what I'm saying? He beat Muin Gafarov, who was 16-3 on the Contender Series. He's now 1-1 in the UFC. So I think that's not a bad loss compared to what it maybe looked like on the regional scene. I know he's fought absolute bums, but I do see potential in him. And he does make quick work. I think he's going to beat Fernie Garcia. I don't see much from Fernie Garcia here. And I didn't like the performance that he gave in his debut either. I know you guys remember his debut as well against Journey Newson. He lost that fight. He showed some toughness, but he didn't show much skill or ability. And he's had his split decision wins over a 9-6 opponent on the regional scene as well. So although he's got good hands, I'm actually going to trust Brady Hiestand to out-grapple him here, I think. I'm going to go with the grappling of Brady Hiestand. Options win fights. I'm going with Brady. He gets this one done. I'm rooting for Bam Bam, and I think he's going to win. Moving on to another fight up the card, which is Maria Oliveira versus Vanessa Demopoulos. I'm going with Maria Oliveira. I think Vanessa Demopoulos is garbage at fighting. In all honesty, that's what I'm going to say about that. I really don't think she's good. Even if you look at some of the wins that she has recently in her career, like her one against Jin Yu Frey. Jin Yu Frey just got dusted up by Polyana Viana. And you arguably should just give that fight to Jin Yu Frey. Vanessa Demopoulos did not win that fight. It was a robbery. So I don't know how they've given that to her. She got a win by submission against Silvana Gomez-Juarez after getting knocked down immediately, though. So that still happened, even though she did get the sub, like Shane Burgos did a long time ago against Kurt Holliber. but I don't see her winning this one against Maria Oliveira. I really don't. I think she's going to lose. I think she's going to be a little bit outsized, a little bit outstrengthed. And Maria Oliveira's got 10 inches of reach to play with on the feet. 9.5 inches of reach, allegedly, on the feet. Vanessa Demopoulos has a 59.5 inch reach, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm going to go with Maria Oliveira, landing shots at range on the feet, picking apart Vanessa Demopoulos, and Vanessa Demopoulos not doing enough with her grappling to get the win, which is based on damage. You know what I'm saying? Moving on. Up the card, Ricky Turcios versus Kevin Natividad. I'm going to go with Ricky Turcios only because it's Kevin Natividad, though. Only because it's Kevin Natividad. If they were giving Ricky Turcios any decent caliber fighter in the bantamweight division, I would be very, very worried. But there's a couple guys at the bottom that I'm going to trust Ricky Turcios to be. And that's even like the Fernie Garcias of the division as well. But Turcios in his last fight, he just looked like he was going in there to try and he looked like, I've never seen a fighter actively try and get a robbery decision. He threw 235 strikes, landed 27 of them. And he wasn't even trying to, that might have been accidental that he landed 27. He genuinely tried to rob a decision. I've never seen it happen before. So I am worried about this pick, going with Ricky Turcios here. But Kevin Natividad just isn't that good. And every time we've seen him perform in the cage, things seem to go very badly for him. You know, he's coming off of a KO loss. 9-3 at the moment. He fought a bunch of nobodies getting into the UFC, a bunch of low-level competition. He fought Erwin Rivera and got a razor-close win against him on the regional scene, which isn't too bad. But he's been KO'd a few times now. 3 times now he's been KO'd. Once by Miles Johns, once by Glenn Baker, and once by Batgarel Dana as well. So I feel like if there's anyone who's going to be as gun-shy as Turcios, it might now be Natividad. And I think that's going to favour Turcios if they're both hesitant for him to just out-hustle Natividad and get this one done by decision, 29-28, very close. I'm worried for both. I'm worried for Turcios, though. I had such belief in him, and I feel like he just hit like a mental block. I think he's got downs. I'll be honest with you. I think he's got something wrong with him. So, that is a problem. Like, he got a little bit of tism. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of a tism here, tism there. Extra chromosome here. Something's up. So if he can channel that extra chromosome into a positive mental state for this weekend, I reckon he can get this one done. Moving on. Up the card. Vince Morales versus Miles Johns. I'm going to go with Miles Johns. God, this card is so... Dude, this card is actually like... Do not bet on this card. I'm telling you this right now. Do not put money on this card. It's a minefield of picks. Every single pick is like, You know what I mean? I'm going Miles Johns, though, because he's younger, and I feel like he has more potential to grow and improve. He does have a reach disadvantage here against Vince Morales, but I like Miles Johns. I've seen Vince Morales fight, and he has had some good performances. You know, he finished Lewis Smolka, but Lewis Smolka's getting up there in age now. You know what I'm saying? He's took his damage in his fights. And for Vince Morales, I'm just seeing a dirtier record. I'm seeing performances that, you know, he should have done better in. And he does hang in there and make it a bit more competitive with certain fighters. But, you know, I see stuff like, you know, he barely beats Draco Rodriguez over 3 rounds. And I don't rate Draco Rodriguez whatsoever. And then, you know, Chris Gutierrez just embarrasses him in their fight as well. And I'm seeing Benito Lopez beat him. Like, this is the problem that I'm having with Vince Morales. So, I'm going to trust in Miles Johns because I actually see talent out of him. I see physical gifts that he has in terms of strength and explosiveness. And I see talent in him as well. And I believe he's coming off a pretty good performance. No. He's coming off the John Castaneda fight, which was a tough one. He was doing good. And then he started to get a little bit overwhelmed as the fight went on by John Castaneda. And then John Castaneda recently lost. This is the problem. Miles Johns can be chinned. And when he does get hurt, he seems to lose hope a little bit. But I think against Vince Morales, there's not much KO threat on the table. And I'm going to trust Miles Johns to sort of win the battle of this fight. He looked amazing against Anderson Dos Santos. He looked really good against Kevin Natividad, destroyed him, as we mentioned earlier. And, you know, he fought Mario Batista and gave him a tough fight. It was a very slow-paced fight, but it was a good, you know, technical back and forth against someone who's really talented in Mario Batista until Batista landed that big flying knee. So, I'm going to go Miles Johns. I don't see Morales getting a KO out of nowhere. And if this is a decision, I'll trust Miles Johns to win it. Moving on. Up the card to another fight. Jennifer Maia versus Marina Moroz. Oh my god, this card. The main card, I'm pretty convinced on who's going to win, but the prelims are genuinely all over the place, and I don't think there's any way of actually predicting them correctly, so alhamdulillah, you know? Like, hopefully God's got my back on this one. I'll go with Marina Moroz just because Jennifer Maia's 34, and I think she's done. But Marina Moroz wins by grappling, and Jennifer Maia's got good submissions. So this is what I'm worried about with this fight. And Marina Moroz ain't that good, really. Like, Maria Agapova keeps losing. Like, it's not like that's really a great win that she has anymore. Or anything like that, you know. But she beat Maia Bueno Silva, who has good grappling as well. And she used grappling there to win, and she outdid her with significant strikes. And Maia Bueno Silva does have good submissions. And she submitted Stephanie Egger, who's really good at grappling as well. And the fact that Marina Moroz didn't get submitted and just won that fight as it went on, it is quite impressive. I'm going to trust in Marina Moroz to win this fight in all areas, because Maia is quite trash, although she did hurt Manon Fiorot to the body at one point in their fight. But I'm going to go Marina Moroz. Bigger, rangier. You know what I'm saying? This is one of those cards where it's like, there's so many ways you can go with these. You can pick any other pick that I've done, and you'd find an argument for it. Other than maybe Natalia Silva, because she has got some talent there. But still, like, this is a dangerous card, man. Dangerous prelims. You're either going to get them all wrong, all right, or 50-50. Moving on. Charles Johnson versus Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Here, I'm convinced Charles Johnson's going to win. I think Charles Johnson's got this one in the bag. I was very impressed with him against Makayev. He had a really good performance. I watched it back and I was thinking, you know what? I gave a YouTuber in the UK, an MMA YouTuber in the UK, a hard time for arguing that Charles Johnson should have won on damage. But he arguably, like, there's an argument. You know what I mean? Like, he really did outland Makayev every round. It's just the amount of takedowns that Makayev had was just too much for the judges to see over that. So I understand why they gave the decision to Makayev. It makes sense. But Johnson was out hustling him with, like, total strikes and stuff like that in the clinch, and knees to the body and punches to the head. He showed a real ability to stuff good takedowns against Mohamed Makayev, and I just don't feel as though Zhalgas Zhumagulov is going to be able to take him down over and over again. But I do believe he's going to try, which is why I'm picking Charles Johnson. Amazing cardio. I'm going to go with Charles Johnson third round TKO. Is what I'm going to go with here. I think he'll lose the first, win the second, finish in the third, or just win the third and win by decision. But I think cardio is going to be a factor, because I know he can stuff all the takedowns of Zhalgas, but I know Zhalgas is going to try and take him down anyway. So I can see Zhalgas slowing down and gassing, constantly trying to take down Charles Johnson. So I'm going Charles Johnson here. I think he gets this one done by TKO. And also Zhalgas getting up there for a flyweight, 34 years of age. Not very explosive either, so I don't really see a finish. I'll go Johnson. Late rounds finish. Moving on to another fight which is on the main card, which is Jack Della Maddalena versus Danny Roberts. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm going with Jack Della Maddalena here. They have not done Danny Roberts any favours, and I think they just basically said, listen, Danny Roberts, no one wants to fight Jack Della Maddalena. We could cut you from the UFC. Do you want it or not? And Danny Roberts is probably thinking, if I can get an upset, I can be on the UK card in March. Like, so I think he's stepped up valiantly, but I do believe Jack Della Maddalena is going to catch him and put him away. He's got too much power in his shots. Like, Danny Roberts is getting rocked off jabs, and Della Maddalena's jab is so slick. So I could see him getting a first round KO here. I really can. Danny Roberts is good though. He's like weirdly athletically kind of good until he gets hit by any kind of punch whatsoever on the chin. So that's the problem that I'm having here. He's good. He's really good. He's got technique. He's got grappling ability until anything lands on his chin. And I mean anything. You know what I mean? He should have lost to Ramazan Emeev, Della Maddalena escaped all of his grappling offense against Amir and then finished him in the first round with a body shot. So this guy's hitting different and with different ability in the welterweight division. You can just see it. And also, Angelusas came back and had a good win as well in the UFC recently. So, against AJ Fletcher, who was a good prospect. And I actually picked Angelusa to win based on how good he looked against Jack Della Maddalena. So, that's made me think more of Jack Della Maddalena. And also, Pete Rodriguez destroyed Mike Jackson. So, he's not garbage. You know what I mean? So, he's at least some talent in his game. So that makes Jack Della Maddalena look a little bit better too. So I'm going to go Jack Della Maddalena. I'm pretty convinced that it might get a bit scrappy because Roberts is going to go out there and empty the toolbox on him. But once he lands something solid on Danny Roberts' chin, I think he'll find it. Plus, he's been training for this the entire time, and Danny Roberts kind of got the call up on short notice, whereas Jack Della Maddalena has been hell-bent. I'm fighting in November, then I'm fighting in Australia. So he's had this in his mind that this is the time that he's fighting. I think he wanted to fight in October on the Adesanya, or I think he wanted to fight on the Adesanya card and wanted to fight in October. So he's had more time to prepare. He's only going to get better. I'm going Jack Della Maddalena getting this one done. TKO in the first round. Brutal as well. Moving on to another fight up the card, which is Cody Brundage versus Rodolfo Vieira. I'm going Rodolfo Vieira here. I'm going Rodolfo Vieira. Now, does Brundage's win over Tresean Gore look good in hindsight? It does. But he's not special. Cody Brundage. He's very basic in what he does on the feet. And even in his takedowns, you know, like he was losing the entire fight. I know it wasn't a long fight, but he was losing the whole way through against Daucha Lungiambula and then got a guillotine out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't seem that promising. I don't see talent in Cody Brundage. I see a more wrestling-heavy Marvin Vettori coming up in the middleweight division here. So I'm going to go with the talent of Rodolfo Vieira, the sudden ability of Rodolfo Vieira here. I think he'll be able to manage things on the feet with Brundage with his jab, which seems to have improved in his recent fights. I know he lost to Chris Curtis with body shots, but I don't see Brundage ripping body shots the same way Curtis does. And even then, he stayed in the fight with Chris Curtis and made it competitive all the way through. He beat Dustin Stoltzfus, submitted him in the third round. Lost to Anthony Hernandez, but Hernandez has been looking amazing recently, and still Rodolfo Vieira was dominating him in the grappling early on and then started to gas out. I'm going to trust in Rodolfo Vieira to find some way of submitting Cody Brundage. I think he'll submit him with like a rear naked choke. I think he'll be in a scramble. They'll both be striking, both get sloppy. Brundage will decide to shoot, and maybe Vieira will stuff it, get his back against a cage, start working his own grappling offense, take his back, choke him out. I see a rear naked choke win here, submission for Rodolfo Vieira, and I think both of them are going to kind of cancel each other out on the feet because they're both decently okay. I don't think either guy's going to have a massive advantage, and if they are, I think it'll be Vieira's jab with a little bit of a reach advantage. Moving on, up the card, Andre Fialho versus Muslim Salikhov. I am going to go with Andre Fialho here. I am. I think Muslim Salikhov's one of the most overrated guys in the UFC. And I think it's because of the way he looks and his surname being Salikhov and him being like a Dagestani-ish guy. You know what I mean? From Makachalaka, Russia. Same place as a bit. I think people really did put a lot of weight into that in his rise. I picked Li Jingliang to beat him, and you know, what do you know? Li Jingliang got the KO win against him. I picked Alessio Zaleski dos Santos to beat him, and I thought he actually did beat him. And I know Trinaldo's good, but, you know, Salikhov barely got the win over him, and it was a tough fight over 3 rounds. I just think there's a lot of openings to where a guy like Fialho's going to find that kill shot on him. And I think they're going to get scrappy. I think Salikhov's going to land on Fialho. Fialho's going to land back as well. But I think when Fialho lands, it's going to be a little bit different. And I don't think Salikhov's going to have the same level of recovery. Listen, people talk about a Jake Matthews fight for Andre Fialho. But let's be real, Jake Matthews, you know, he has a win over Li Jingliang before. He has great wins in his career in general. And he genuinely looked like a guy who could be a top contender in the welterweight division in that fight. It wasn't like, it was like, wow, Andre Fialho's terrible. It was a real case of, wow, Jake Matthews is actually amazing at fighting. And he's made all the improvements that he needs to. And I feel like Fialho's taken enough time off, came back at the end of the year. And I think he'll find this one against Muslim Salikhov. I think they'll get scrappy, though. And maybe Salikhov will hurt him first, and then he'll hurt Salikhov back afterwards. But, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of timidity from Salikhov recently. And once he gets hit big in a fight, he seems to, like, cover up a bit and do too much of the spinning stuff. Whereas Filaho keeps it basic, and I think that'll be a benefit if things get a bit crazier. So, Andre Filaho gets this one done. TKO in the second round. Moving on. Up the card, Chase Sherman versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta. How's his leg feeling? I hate this card. I can't do this card, man. I've got real bad feelings about this card. This is genuinely anything, any fight. We ain't even got to the main event yet. I'll talk about that in a second. This is anything can happen, any fight. The Orlando card, I got it. I got the card. Easy. That's an easy 9-3, 10-4 card. The December pay-per-view card, basic common sense in a lot of the picks. The Cannonier Strickland card, same thing, but this card is just a death trap. How's his leg feeling? That's my big question here. I am going to go with Waldo Cortes-Acosta because even with that destroyed leg, he was still boxing the face off of Jared Vandeira, and Vandeira had nothing for him in the boxing. Whereas, when Chase Sherman fought Jared Vandeira, I know he finished him, and that's something that Waldo Cortes-Acosta didn't do, but it was a lot more even on the feet with the boxing. A lot more even on the feet. And it's not like Chase Sherman's got an amazing ability of leg kicks himself. Now, is it such a vulnerability for Waldo Cortes-Acosta to where anyone can figure out the leg kick recipe? Maybe. But I'm going to go with Waldo Cortes-Acosta. I'm going to trust him to get this one done against Sherman by TKO in the first round. I think he'll learn. He's been active. He'll figure out some things to change. And I think he's going to find this one. He's younger as well. More athletic. Heavier. I'll go with Waldo Cortes-Acosta getting a first round KO here. Pat, pat. 1-2 down the pipe on Sherman. Puts him away. Moving on to another fight up the card, which is Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Jan Cutelaba. Another one. Dude, Cutelaba's a 50-50 and he just lost. So he might win. But I'm going to go Nzechukwu. Nzechukwu is an underrated light heavyweight. Now, he did get KO'd by nothing before, which is strange. But, you know, this is just the card that we're being given here to try and predict after looking so clever at the UFC 281 card. Nzechukwu did get KO'd by nothing. And even arguably should win against Nagumilian, who's not looking good. I'm going with Nzechukwu. Is what I'm going with. I think he'll get this one done. I do believe in him. He's a big old heavy bag at times, but his ability is catching up. You know what I mean? And he's only 30. I know Cutelaba's 28, but he seems too stubborn to make improvements in his game. Nzechukwu's got great grappling defense, good grappling in general. Took Paul Craig the third round to finish him off with a triangle. And Craig, you know, he can do what he did to Jamal Hill in one round. So it's not like there's a massive vulnerability there for Nzechukwu's grappling game. He destroyed Roberson and looked amazing against Roberson, who's probably similar danger levels on the feet to Cutelaba. But has he got the takedown defense? I think he does. He stuffed nearly all of them against Nagumilianu. It's just his chin. It's unimaginably granite against Dahlberg. And then he literally got KO'd by nothing against Da Un Young. I'm going to go with Nzechukwu. He survived Danilo Marquez's positional grappling dominance and then came back to finish him in a gassed out state later on. So I'm going to go with Kennedy Nzechukwu, third round TKO. Cutelaba might control him, but he won't get a finish. And Nzechukwu will come back against a gassed out Cutelaba in the third round and finish him off. Moving on to another fight up the card, which is Derrick Lewis versus Sergey Spivak. I'm going with Sergey Spivak. He's a great fighter. I love to fight him. Sergey Spivak. Anyway, I'm going with Sergey Spivak. I'm done with Derrick Lewis. I've picked him as an underdog many a time. I picked him to lose to Sergey Pavlovich by first round KO. I picked him to win against Taito Ivasa. I do a 50-50 with Lewis. Like, I pick him and I don't, and I don't, and I pick him. And it's a bit of a weird one like that. But I just think there's a time and a place where you got to let it go. And I just don't feel like Derrick Lewis is in the right frame of mind to get up in the morning at 37 years of age, with all the money he's already made in the sport, and put in those tough wrestling hours that he's going to need to beat a guy like Sergey Spivak. Could he find the first round KO? Yes. When was the last time Derrick Lewis got a first round KO? Against Chris Dorcas, who literally stood in the pocket and traded with him as a guy who should be a middleweight and thinks he's a heavyweight because he's fat. You know what I mean? Like, it's... And I picked him to do that to Dorcas as well. So, I know Blades couldn't get down Lewis, but Blades kind of falls in love with his striking at times, and he was doing really good against Lewis on the feet. I think Sergey Spivak's going to get him in a body lock and start going for trips and sweeps and different types of takedowns. He's not going to blast a double leg against Derrick Lewis and start shooting single legs against a cage and getting the side of his head punched in. I can trust him to sort of like end up in the clinch, closing the distance, and then using like an inside trip, outside trip, a sweep, kick out the legs and drag the upper body of Derrick Lewis down. I think it's a different style of grappling with Spivak than Curtis Blades that works a lot better against Derrick Lewis because it's a safer position to grapple from. With Curtis Blades, you're at danger. You have to make your way to the grappling. Whereas Spivak can make his way to a safe spot in the clinch and then start to work his grappling. I reckon he gets this one done via TKO. I just think he's going to rain down some vicious shots and get it done. Augusto Sakai is a big, heavyweight. Sergey Spivak is a big dude. He's not 6'2", which is what Google is telling me right now. I'm just going to check Spivak's bigger than Ngannou. I'm telling you this right now. He's taller than Ngannou. I've seen pictures. Derrick Lewis is claimed at 6'3", and Spivak is claiming 6'3". He's like 6'5". I swear to God he is. And he's so young, I guess they took his young age. But he's grown a bit more. So, yeah. The only time he's lost recently is when he stepped in on short notice against Aspinall. But Aspinall has that speed and also the grappling defense that he has to watch out for. I think he can toss around Derrick Lewis. And Lewis will get back up early on. But this is the thing with Sergey Spivak. He'll stick to Lewis. Lewis won't get back up. And Spivak is like a fat Ilir Latifi or Blagoy Ivanov who's just going to let go and just abandon the takedown if they get back up because he doesn't have the agility to get to a better position. I think Spivak's the type of guy who Derrick Lewis will get back up and Spivak will keep a hold of the body lock against the cage, drag him down again. Lewis will get back up. Spivak will keep a hold of the body lock, kick out a foot, drag him down again. And I just think there's going to be only so many get-ups Derrick Lewis can do before he gasses. And then I'm going to go with Sergey Spivak TKO. Not even that he's KO'd Derrick Lewis, but just that Derrick Lewis has just given up trying to improve position. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.